Hello sweet friends, my name is Angie and welcome to the Bumblebee Farmhouse, a place where I hope that you can come and find a little bit of inspiration to make your house a home sweet home. Today's video, I will be refinishing my Kitchenaid stand mixer. I've wanted a copper stand mixer. They have not been on the market for about a year or two now, and they are quite expensive when they are on the market. So I thought that I would refinish a Kitchenaid stand mixer just the way that I wanted it, without spending a really high price point of $1,000. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'll kind of talk about the process, where I got this mixer from, and let's just go ahead and get into the whole thing. So if you have a little bit of time, I'd love it if you can come on over, stay a while, and hang out with me here at the Bumblebee Farmhouse, where you are always welcome. Now let's get to this project. Okay, so now you can see here that we're unscrewing some of the elements of the mixer that are going to have to come off. We are taping off some of the areas that we don't want to get any spray paint on. And this particular model, it's a professional series 6 quart. So this one didn't have too much to take apart. I know they're all kind of different, like compared to the tilt head. So we just took off and taped off what we thought was necessary. Kind of cleaned everything up. I did clean this when I got it. So I actually purchased this on Facebook Marketplace. I do have a artisan 5 quart in the pear color. You probably saw it in the background earlier in this video. And so that's a 5 quart and it does a beautiful job, but it does not do well with doughs. I need like really heavy doughs. And I love to bake bread, so I don't want to burn out the motor. So I thought I would get a professional series. This is the 6 quart. I believe you can even put a 7 quart bowl on this mixer from what I read. But this does have supposedly a much stronger motor. So when I want to bake breads, this will be perfect. Now, the color that I got it in, it is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it. I was able to purchase this on Facebook Marketplace for $175. These retail for about, I want to say like around $600. It did come with 2 attachments. I sold the 2 attachments for $40 on Facebook Marketplace, which puts me at about $135 total for the stand mixer. And what I want to go with is a beautiful copper tone to kind of tie in all of my kitchen. Now this color is actually really beautiful. It's like a darker kind of charcoal color. It's not black. It is more matted, more of a muted matte. So it doesn't have any high gloss or sheen. And it is a beautiful color, but I really do want a copper to tie into our kitchen. So again, I'm going in and I am taping off the cord in the back, the handle. I am just taping everything that I do not want to get any paint on. And so I'm just carefully taping all of that off. And this is part of the prep before I start sanding it. I also noticed that on this stand mixer, the finish was a little bit different. There were some rough areas compared to other parts of the mixer. So I don't know if all of these KitchenAids in this particular color are like that, but this one is almost like a textured KitchenAid compared to the glossy pear green one that I have that's extremely smooth. So I'm not a professional refinisher or painter, but I did take my time. This took me about almost 2 weeks because there was a high period of really high humidity and nonstop rain. So I had to kind of take a break and wait until the weather cleared because I did do this outside and there was a lot of hiccups, which I will talk about in this video. Now, I ordered a smorgasbord of sandpaper from Amazon. Ended up coming out cheaper than what I would have purchased at Home Depot or Menards or Lowe's. So I purchased a big pack of all different sorts of grits of sandpaper. I think it went from like 200 all the way to 3,000 grit. So when I'm going to sand this, I decided that I'm going to start with a lower grit and work up to a higher grit to smooth everything out. I did also purchase a couple different colors, shades of copper. They're very similar. I just couldn't decide. So you'll see which one I end up choosing. And then I have some spray paints here for the primer, like the base coat, and then the high clear gloss coat that I'm going to put towards the end. So as I'm doing this, I will show you which coats I am using throughout this whole process. So I'm starting with a 600 grit sandpaper. I probably could have gone with a 400, but that works just fine. So I am giving it one good sanding before I wipe everything down, and then I go ahead and I start a base coat. So I'm going to go ahead and sand this down as best as I can. I ended up taking the sanding block off and just using the paper. It's just easier to get around all the nooks and the corners. So I'm starting with that before I go ahead and get to on my first layer, my first primer, my first layer of paint. Now the color that this was purchased in is absolutely gorgeous. I actually really like it. But again, I really wanted the copper. I think it's extremely unique. And since I didn't want to search for a copper one, which I have, and it's almost nearly impossible, when they did come out with it, it was like a limited edition color and it was about $1,000. So very pricey. Not that I wouldn't shell out the money for it if I really wanted it, but I figured let me put some elbow grease into it and see what I can come up with myself. Now, is it 100% perfect? No, I did run into a few hiccups, but she is perfect for me in my kitchen and I really am enjoying it. I literally just finished putting her back together and taking the tape off and cleaning it up. So I'm gonna let it cure for like a month to a month and a half before I actually start using it for baking, because there's so many layers on there. And so I really want that paint to cure before I actually start using it in the kitchen. Now the bottom area of the sand mixer that you just saw me sand, it has such a just a rougher metal surface. So as much as I sanded it and put so much elbow grease into it, I could not get it perfectly smooth. And it's just how the metal was. That's how it was painted. That's how, like, if you actually felt the metal on that, the material, it was more of like a rougher material on the bottom. So we're going to take her outside. I know I'm referring to my stand mixer as a female, but we're going to take her outside and we're going to get started on the refinishing process. Sorry, my deck is kind of messy. We had massive storms the last 3 or 4 days, and we're just very grateful that our house is still standing up. So anyway, I thought I'd go ahead and take to the project today. It's hot, but it's not as hot as the other days. It's been like 100 degrees with the heat index. So we're gonna go ahead and take some Lysol wipes and clean up all the dust from the sanding, because we just did sand it. Okay, so we're gonna start with this. We're gonna do a really thin coat. So this is a flat white spray paint that I'm using, I think from Rust-Oleum. So it's just a flat white, and the flat white is going to be the primer slash base coat of this project. So we want to get it one light color before we start putting on the copper. So we want to start with a white flat before we start with the copper to finish it. And actually the white was really pretty, so I'm really excited to do my pear green mixer in the white when it's time. Now, I did let this dry before I started with the copper, so I just want you guys to know that I left it outside to dry for probably 4 or 5 hours before I went in with my first base of copper. Now, with the copper, I am going in like a back and forth motion, extremely light. So I want very thin, light layers of spray paint. I'm not going to sit there and just spray it heavy in one spot, because what I want to do is avoid runs, which I do have a few on my mixer, not as bad, but the point of it was to just kind of lightly go with one coat of copper at a time and let it dry about 3 to 4 hours in between each coat before I go on to my next really thin light coat of copper paint. I am keeping the spray paint about 8 to 10 inches away. I just noticed the closer that I go, the more likely I am to get paint runs. So I try to keep it about 8 to 10 inches away to kind of help it from the paint globbing up and running in one area. I've seen so many different techniques for this done. It's like hard to pick which one. I've seen people not sand it. I've seen people not even like really do any cleaning on it. And I just really can't stress, for me personally, how elegant I think copper looks in the kitchen. And I really can't wait to have this tie in my warm and cozy kind of farmhousey cottage kitchen. I'm so looking forward to it. I think it's just going to tie everything in beautifully. Okay, so I did get a decent coat of paint on there. Now I don't see a ton of drips anywhere yet. I try to go as thin as I could, kind of far away. So it does look kind of rough. So it is going to get a light sand once it is done being painted with this coat. I'll do a light sand and wipe it down. And then we'll do another coat, a light sand, wipe it down, and then we'll do a clear gloss. So slowly it's getting there. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know, but I am really, really excited about this. So now I am going in with a high grit sandpaper, and I want to smooth out each coat in between as much as I can. So when I did the flat white, I smoothed it out lightly. Now that I've got my first base of copper, I'm smoothing it out lightly with a grit of 3000 sandpaper. I'm going with a light hand, as light as I can, to smooth out all the surfaces so there's not like a lot of bumps or lumps. So I'm just going in lightly, best as I can, to give it a smooth surface before I clean it up and go on to my next coat of paint. We're gonna go in with another light sanding of 3000 grit sandpaper to kind of smooth it out as much as we can before we get onto some more paint. I also want to stress that this is the next day, so I have been bringing this in and out of the house each day that it's nice enough to work outside. And so we're just smoothing it out again, so with the 3000 grit, so we can get a nicer, smoother surface, as smooth as we possibly can, and also so that the next coat of paint will adhere better. So paint always sticks better when the surface is roughed up a little bit. And so we go here with another really light coat of paint. I believe this is probably the third coat, which is, I do run into some trouble here, and I'll talk to you about it in a minute, but we are putting on a third super light coat. Okay, so it's about 5 or 6 days later. We had a lot of rain, so I didn't want to finish it outside, leave it outside with the rain. So I'm going to give it a light wet sand, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply the clear coat. The clear coat is already on the bottom here, so like all of this area, but this part needs a lighter sand, just a very light. I'm using a 2000 grit piece of sandpaper, which is right here. See, 2000, very light wet sand, and then I'm going to dry it, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the clear coat on, and then let her cure for probably a while, probably a full day before I put the hardware back on, a day or two, and then I'm going to let it cure for about a month until I actually use it. So she is looking good. I did have to redo her. There is a slight spot up here that you can see. There's a little bit of a line of demarcation where I messed up, so I had to resand, but you can't really see it unless you're at an angle. It feels extremely smooth, so that's why I was like, I can't sand it anymore. You can see a slight mark, a small little mark, but that's all I can do. Also, I have all of our rugs out here are smaller rugs because we pressure washed. So yeah, fun times, lots of projects, lots of things to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and give that a wet sand, and we'll take it from there. So this is wet, this towel, just gonna give it a light wipe down because it's very wet, and a super light sand, just so I can do the base coat. So where that line of demarcation was, you guys, a bird pooped on there, and it stuck to the paint, and that's what happened there. That was not fun. I had to like peel it off, scrape it, resand, repaint that area as best as I could, and that's what happens when you're working outside. Birds poop on things and they ruin projects. So this is my last coat of my high gloss paint. So I finish it off with the high gloss enamel paint, spray paint from Rust-Oleum, and I'm gonna let this cure. I literally let this cure for about 4 days before I started taking all the tape off and unpeeling it and displaying her in our home. And I forgot to mention in the beginning of the video, you want to put all of your little screws and components together. I just kept them in one little dish. It was just like 2 or 3 little screws, and then obviously the band, the Kitchenaid band that goes across the top. I just kept them all in one little area on top of the kitchen counter. It was kind of a pain in the butt to keep them all in one spot for like almost 2 weeks, but it's just best to keep everything together so you don't lose anything, because that's the last thing you want to do. Like, get ready to put your project back together and then things are lost. Alright, time to give it one last wipe down. So I'm going to take a dry rag, kind of wipe off the dust, because there was a lot of dust on this. Just, you know, from just sitting outside, in and out, in and out. And even though I've cleaned it and dusted it, it got really, really dusty. So again, I'm just giving it dry dust, and then I'm going to go ahead in with the Lysol wipes and give it a good cleaning. I'm just going to kind of give the bowl a nice little shine. It's clean. I cleaned it the other day, but I just want to give it a little shine and just put it all together. She is gorgeous. I'm so glad with how, I'm like so happy with how this turned out. If you guys are thinking about doing a project like this, I do highly recommend it. I do think this turned out beautiful. Is it perfect? 100% perfect? No. But to be completely honest, the original finish on it wasn't perfect either from Kitchenaid. So, I mean, I think I did as best as I could, and it looks so great in our kitchen. I'm really happy with the outcome. I'm actually looking forward to doing the pear green probably late fall or early spring of next year. Late fall of this year, early spring of next year. I do want to do that like a really high gloss white, and maybe I'll purchase a copper bowl for it. But regardless, I'm like so happy with this that I'm actually looking forward to my next Kitchenaid project. You guys, if you have something beautiful in your home, don't be afraid to spruce it up. That's one thing I'm learning that I'm just loving doing in our home. A little bit of paint, a little bit of elbow grease, and man, does it make such a difference. So I hope that you guys found some inspiration here at my channel to make your house a home sweet home. If you guys are thinking about refinishing your Kitchenaid, I highly, highly recommend it. I want to thank you so much if you made it all the way till the end, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And remember, friends, as Dorothy Gale once said, there's no place like home. That's right, friends. Home, sweet home. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.